I want people to know who Teri is, where Teri came from,
Yeah.
how Teri got to be the owner of a bank.
Yeah. So it's funny you would ask that question the way you did because usually I would answer that question or for years by giving my resume. But what I realized in my 50s, so a little too old to have realized this, that I am who I am because of my great grandmother.
Hmm.
We called her Ma Honey. Everybody else called her Miss Honey. Her name was Annie Coachman, and she owned a penny candy store where I used to work, a barbecue pit where she sold barbecue, a juke joint where I learned how
Wow.
to play pool, and a bunch of rental apartments. And I used to follow her around to collect rent. So she owned these businesses on the black side of town in this small town called Indiantown, Florida, in Booker Park. And really, since I was born, I mean, she owned those businesses for way uh, before I was born, in the 40s. And so my whole life, I was raised in an entrepreneurial community. I didn't think of her that way. I didn't think of her as a businesswoman. I just thought of her as my great grandmother. But I
Mm.
realized that when I went from Indiantown to Brown, I became embarrassed or ashamed of my
Mm.
roots.
Yeah.
And I buried her and my whole upbringing, the first 17 years of my life. I buried and started to give credit to my success to Brown University, majoring in economics and Harvard Business School and all that stuff. And now, as I have aged and have really thought the origins of my success, I realize it was my great grandmother.
I love that. Um, because we've talked about on the podcast how Black women were the most educated. We hold all of these degrees and certifications, and we put so much emphasis on them, and it's a beautiful, wonderful thing. Um, but we're more than that, right? And when I recently did an episode because I think that as we try to navigate what's going on right now politically, we're trying to figure out, when we're losing our jobs, if we try to go get another corporate job, we're trying to stay so, hard and true to what it is we were trained to do, educated to do. There's other facets of us. And I talked about how I live in St. Louis, grew up in St. Louis, and my dad's 82. And when we drive around St. Louis, he's pointing out what used to be here and what used to be there and this abandoned building and that abandoned building. And I just wish I could have seen it, all, all the Black businesses that were there. And then white flight happened and then Black folks moved out to the suburbs and, we don't have those businesses anymore. So we were doing all of the things before,
Yep, yep. Black Wall
the,
Street and all
yeah,
of that. Yes,
all of
yeah,
the things, all
yeah.
of the things. So, but yeah, maybe talk about that because I'm sure you see like so many businesses and, now my whole thing is everybody's a consultant, right? I consult too. Like I say this and I'm laughing at myself, but I also have, rental property and other things. But, you know, what what are you seeing? Like, what are you seeing? Like these epiphanies that Black people are having, Black business owners, things like that, when it comes to maybe stepping away from corporate. I don't know. Like, I'm curious to what you see.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think, we sort of are going in two different directions. I do think that we recognize that corporate America or government jobs carry a risk. I think we thought of them as safe jobs and being an entrepreneur as being risky. But we're now realizing that, there's a risk to that path as well.
Sure.
And so, yeah. And so a lot of us are, whether it's, doing something on the side or, leaving our corporate, our quote, safe jobs and starting businesses or even acquiring businesses, which, I definitely, promote. I think we're starting to see those avenues as being more fulfilling, and maybe even more secure. So that's one path that we're seeing, and we're seeing it with the huge, increase in new businesses that has happened since the pandemic, particularly in the Black community, but also with women and just across the board. I think the other thing is that we're also seeing the importance of technology. So, when I think of my great grandmother and her businesses, if she had only had social media,
Right.
people used to come from like West Palm Beach and drive all the way to Indiantown to get a barbecue. But if she had social media, she would have had people from Miami. She would have had people from all over.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I think we're starting to recognize that, with our businesses, I don't care whether they're brick and mortar or whether they're, consulting or, what they are, that we really need to think technology first and think about how we can promote ourselves, how we can do business and leverage technology. So those are the things that I see are happening in our community.
I love that you said that because I've been on this whole like self-promotion thing. And it's hard, I think, for Black women to self-promote because in so many instances we've been diminished. And I talk about my journey and, I the things that I've done are amazing, but I don't see them as amazing. I just see them as regular. And, mediocre, maybe white men just are willing to promote themselves so loudly and so strongly. And I talk about using technology, using AI to extract the value of what it is you bring to the table, as opposed to, I do this task, I do this task, I do this task. Yeah, we all know we can do tasks, but what is the value that you bring to the table so you can start to charge for that value? So I did get some feedback about AI is bad. This is bad for Black people. What do you say about that?
Yeah, I say the opposite. Actually, AI is good, and I would like our community to run towards it. It is a new technology, which means that we have the benefit of starting in the same place as the rest of the world. Today, no one knows how to best use AI. So we can be first movers. The bank, we just introduced a program called Wise One, and it uses AI to be a personal financial assistant for you in your pocket 24/7. You can talk to it about your finances. And it all remains within the bank. It doesn't go out into, the stratosphere to train other, agents. It stays within the bank, but it does use AI to give you insights into your money and help you make better decisions. So you could find that at oneunited.com/wise1. I want to say that because if your listeners are interested, but we really want our community to embrace AI and don't be dissuaded, don't be hoodwinked into thinking that it is not good.